Elite Facts presents
10 most controversial South Park episodes. Okay, so this list was a difficult one. Why is that, you might be asking? Well, there's so many controversial episodes to pick from. So we can already see that we're not going to please everyone with this list, but come on, it's South Park. Like, every episode of this show that they've released is offensive in some way, shape, or form. If we've missed any, feel free to discuss in the comments below, but for now, here's our 10 most controversial episodes of South Park.
10.
It Hits the Fan. This episode is on the list for obvious reasons. However, it only ranks low due to it only revolving around a curse word. In this episode, the show Cop Drama makes headlines for being the first show on television to use the word shit on TV. Back in real life, however, the people of South Park decide that because it was said on live television, that it was deemed acceptable for anyone and everyone to say the word whenever they so please. The episode was broadcast complete with a counter to tally how many times the word was said, and to the surprise of the creators, the word shit was said a total of 162 times, not including the 38 times it's written, which brings the total up to an even 200.
9.
Cartman joins Nambla. Given how South Park has continued to venture into more and more shocking territory over the years, you would think that its earlier seasons are a bit more tame in comparison to the newer seasons. Sometimes that's the case, but there are definitely some early South Park episodes that stand the test of time and still shock viewers even to this day. This is especially true of a little adventure from South Park's 4th season, appropriately titled Cartman Joins Nambla. Now, what's Nambla, you might ask? Well, Nambla, for those of you who are fortunate enough to not know what this organization is, stands for North American Man-Boy Love Association and is a life organization that promotes relationships between adult males and underage children. Cartman Joins Nambla is all about how Cartman discovers the group online and proceeds to attempt to join their ranks in order to meet older, cooler friends. The subject matter is offensive enough, but what really makes this episode stand out is the way that this story is presented. Almost nothing about the group or their efforts is taken seriously in this episode. I mean, for God's sake, when your organization is shown chasing a bunch of kids around a building in a Scooby-Doo-like sequence from room to room, you know your organization is a sick, disturbing joke. Needless to say, though, this episode was and still is shocking.
8.
Hell on Earth 2006. So the episode itself is actually pretty tame by South Park standards. The plot of this episode revolves around Satan hosting a Super Sweet 16 birthday party in hell. And really, that's all there is to the episode. Sure, it's got a gruesome scene towards the end where Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy end up butchering one another while running party errands in a Three Stooges-like manner, but really, that's it in terms of the story. Nothing too crazy. The reason this episode makes the list is a throwaway joke late in the episode. At Satan's costume party, a familiar-looking Australian man is shown at the party reveling with a stingray lodged in his chest. Satan, assuming that this is someone wearing a deliberately bad taste costume — Steve Irwin had died in reality 6 weeks before the episode aired — chastises him. It's a little too soon, you know. Before it's revealed that this is in fact the real Steve Irwin, who now resides in hell. Maybe it was a little too soon after all.
7.
All About the Mormons. So Matt Stone and Trey Parker pretty much take no prisoners. Whether it's race, current news, or religion, no one is safe from them. The plot of this particular episode revolves around a Mormon family that moves to South Park and disarms everyone with their unfailing kindness. The plot of this episode is actually based on stories from Trey Parker's youth. His high school girlfriend was Mormon, and he was regularly invited around for family event night, much like how Stan was in this episode. These experiences clearly had a big impact on the formative Trey Parker, as Mormonism has been a recurring theme in Parker's work, with the lead character in their 1997 film Orgasmo being a Mormon, and of course their phenomenally acclaimed and successful stage musical, The Book of Mormon, being a reworking of a lot of the themes found in this episode. Needless to say, anyone who is part of the Mormon religion wasn't too happy with this episode, to put it mildly.
6.
Trapped in the Closet. Even though the Church of Scientology more or less held up a sign saying, "Hey, insult us next," most fans thought that although there are some good jokes to be made, that it is just too easy of a subject for Stone and Parker to devote an entire episode to. After all, it's generally a good rule to not start launching globally televised personal attacks at a group that has proven they have no qualms about suing and harassing anyone that publicly challenges them. Of course, that does help to explain why Stone and Parker decided to just go all out on the subject when they finally did an episode on it, given that they may never get the chance to do so again. Trapped in the Closet is an attack on Scientology framed as a story about Tom Cruise literally refusing to leave a closet. The subtext of the latter story wasn't lost on many viewers, but it is the segments devoted to retelling the fundamental beliefs of the Church of Scientology that have earned the episode so much of its controversy. It was a slap in the face of Scientologists and a wake-up call to everyone that was unaware of the group. The episode was so offensive, in fact, that the voice actor of Chef, Isaac Hayes, quit the show because he himself was a Scientologist.
5,
The China Problem. Like many of us, Trey and Matt were appalled with The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, seriously, the film was god-awful. That being said, the way they expressed their distaste towards the film may have been a bit too much. To make their feelings known, several scenes in The China Problem saw George Lucas and Steven Spielberg literally raping Indiana Jones himself as the South Park kids watched on in horror. Genuinely uncomfortable viewing. Not to mention the insensitive depiction of the Chinese stereotype. It's something that Mickey Rooney would be proud of. Then again, this is just another day at South Park Studios.
4,
Scott Tenorman Must Die. With a title like this, you know something is about to go down. Scott Tenorman Must Die will always occupy a special place in the hearts of every South Park fan as the episode that made sure that South Park is one of the most disturbing shows on television. The basic premise here is that Cartman is being bullied by an older kid named Scott Tenorman, who constantly fools him via a series of juvenile pranks. Pretty ironic, isn't it, considering that Cartman is usually the bully, right? So the episode almost presents itself as the typical bully gets bullied storyline, which is admittedly something interesting to see. Cartman, as he is prone to do, promises revenge. It's a setup so simple that it could just as easily have been the premise of an episode for a far tamer show. Things go off the rails, though, when Cartman completes his revenge plot, and it ends up involving the butchering of Scott Tenorman's parents, cooking them into chili, and tricking Scott into eating that chili. Wow. Like, seriously, this episode's climax escalated to such an incredibly horrific point so extremely quickly that you're either going to be unspeakably offended or you're just going to laugh out loud. It also took Cartman's character from being a horrible child to being a diabolical maniac.
3,
Up the Down Steroid. Oh boy, this episode. So it's quite easy to see how this one could be controversial. The main plot of this one revolves around a handicapped South Park resident, Jimmy Vollmer, entering himself into the Special Olympics and then falling under the influence of performance-enhancing steroids, and it even involves a domestic violence scene in this story. It's pretty much just like any edgy sports film from the 1990s. However, this isn't the worst part of the episode. A subplot to this episode revolves around Cartman, because of course it does, who decides to enter himself into the Special Olympics. Okay, that alone is bad enough, but it gets even worse. As a way to fit in with the rest of the entrants in the competition, Cartman decides to make himself look more handicapped. This includes his taking notes on a special needs school bus, cutting his hair horribly, modifying one of his shoes to make him walk like he's got a clubbed foot, and wearing a bike helmet that's strapped on too tight, to the point where it distorts his face and even changes the way he speaks. Kind of easy to see how this one is controversial.
2,
Woodland Critter Christmas. Man, this episode really fooled first-time viewers. So, Season 8's Woodland Critter Christmas starts innocently enough. In fact, it starts off more innocently than anything you'd think South Park is capable of. The vibe the episode gives off at the start is very much like something you'd expect from a traditional Christmas special. You've got a friendly narrator that speaks in rhymes, a little boy thrust into a Christmas quest, and the cutest animated animals this side of a Disney film. Yes, right from the very start. Now, with that being said, any South Park fan knows that nothing this innocent on this show remains innocent for very long anyway, and that something is bound to go horribly, horribly wrong. Even still, not even an alert fan could possibly predict just how dark this episode would get. Not content with merely offending those who hold Christmas sacred, Matt Stone and Trey Parker decided to try to offend everyone by telling a story that focuses on those same animated animals turning out to be insane satanic worshippers with a lust for extreme violence and other unspeakable cruelties. Yeah, not so innocent anymore, right? Now, without going into any specifics, which, believe us, if you don't watch the show, you really don't want to know the specifics, this is without a doubt one of the most disturbing South Park episodes that the writers have ever concocted.
1.
With apologies to Jesse Jackson. This one may have crossed the line. So this episode parodies an infamous incident involving comedian Michael Richards when he called an African-American audience member the N-word. Unfortunately, someone was recording it, and almost instantly, and to the dismay of Michael Richards, it quickly went viral and it was making headlines across the country. In the episode, one of the South Park characters, Randy Marsh, is on Wheel of Fortune and attempts to solve the final puzzle. The clue is people who annoy you, and he is just one letter shy of solving the puzzle. On the puzzle, it almost says the N-word, and stupidly, Randy blurts out the N-word, which turns out to be incorrect, of course. Eventually, later on in the episode, he apologizes to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Ironically, African Americans and the NAACP reacted positively to the episode. Regardless, though, the use of the racial slur like that is a bit much, and it certainly doesn't help that it was blurted out over the air on a game show.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.